Morning. I'm pleasantly surprised to see so many people here at 9 o'clock the morning after the conference party. So thank you very much for coming in. So I'm really pleased to have gathered a panel of experts here to answer all your burning questions. Right, guys? Right. So the panel's only as good as the questions you ask. So please, I really encourage you, if there's something you want to know, and don't just softball us. We might not have the answers, but we really want to hear what's going on. Our job is to make Android development better for you, faster and easier, able to make amazing apps, all that good stuff. So if there's anything that you want, us to know, what's making it hard, what is Google going to do about this, tell us, come and tell us. In addition to the panel, I want to plug that we also have a bunch of office hours downstairs. If you haven't seen it, it's just up the stairs where you come in. There's some booths that look a little bit like confessional booths, but they're actually office hours slots. So we have a few slots open still, so if you want to talk further with folks from the team, I encourage you to go and sign up for those. Without further ado, start thinking about your questions. You can raise your hands or stand up, and the folks around the room with mics will come and find you. But so you know what's going to go on, maybe I can ask Matvei, if you could perhaps start kicking us off, introducing yourself and what you work on.
Hello, my name is Matvei. I'm not actually on a slide, but that's fine. I'm an engineer on Compose, so just Compose and APIs and stuff like that.
Hey, I'm Ben. I work on the Android Developer Relations team, specifically on Compose, and mainly focused on performance.
Hi, I'm Jose. I work on architecture and testing, but mostly testing.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yolanda. I work in a team with Ben doing Compose. You can ask questions about layouts, because it's Compose. You can ask questions about accessibility, about media playback, basically anything Compose.
Hey everyone, I'm Alice. I'm representing all of CoreOS, but my area of specialty is in background work.
Hello, I'm Rob. I work on large screens. I don't have area of expertise about that. Don't worry.
Cool.
No, I'm joking.
Does anyone have a question I want to kick us off? Else I can ask the question, some softballs to you all, but you don't want that. Here we go.
Thank you. So I have a question. So I saw yesterday talks about screenshot testing. So I understood Google investing in screenshot testing. Does it mean that Google moves from instrumental test to screenshot testing?
They're not mutually exclusive, so you can have screenshot tests and instrumental tests. We want to lower the barrier to testing, and we think that screenshot test is so visual, so easy, and also very powerful. So that's why we're investing in it, but definitely does not mean that you should not do espresso tests anymore or Compose test API or Compose tests anymore. We should get a name for that. Behavior tests? I don't know. Non-screenshot tests, both on the JVM and instrumented. So if anything, we're trying to add another category to the official recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
More questions? At the back.
Just as a follow-up to that, Jose mentioned the tool that might be coming to help take Compose previews and turn them into screenshot tests. Do you have any more details about sort of timelines when that might be integrated into Android Studio? And I know you said it's a work in progress.
Later this year is what I'm allowed to say, because this project has been carried out by multiple teams. There's a lot of things that need to happen and align, so it's actually a really hard release to do. But yeah, later this year, we wanted to come here to actually say that this was released. Please try it out. But it slipped a little bit. So yeah, later this year for sure.
But also on the timeline, we're working mostly on the AGP side, right? So it's going to be command line focused on CI first.
Oh yeah, I mean
Studio integration later, right?
Yeah, the UI support is not going to be later this year. That's just for the CI use case for sure.
Thank you.
So I've seen a few collaborations between Google and JetBrains when it comes to Kotlin multi-platform and Compose multi-platform. So what is the future for Kotlin and Compose multi-platform at the Google side? Are you planning on doing more collaborations, or will we be seeing less from you? Thank you.
I can take this one, yeah. Google right now, what we're doing is we're focusing on making Compose the best we can on Android, right? Like that's our main focus because, of course, we only have limited resources. So we want to make sure that it works amazing on Android and everyone can use it to build native Android apps. But that doesn't mean that we're not like applauding what JetBrains is doing, that we're not indeed like collaborating to a certain extent. And so we want that kind of future, and we're very happy with the work they're doing. But that doesn't mean that we can right now say anything specific about future things there. But for now, focus for us is on Android.
From behind the column, would you recommend to learn Flutter?
What was the question?
Would you recommend to learn Flutter?
I mean, Flutter is a great choice for some people, right? Like, so it depends on what you want to do. Like,
This was a follow-up question from the question that one person asked.
I'm struggling to hear.
The question about the future of Kotlin KMP and would you recommend to learn Flutter?
I mean, I think you've got to make that own decision yourself, like knowing what your team size is, what your resources are, like, the business you're into. Like, if multi-platform is like, something you need to do like right now, then, Flutter is a very mature ecosystem. KMP, we know, is still maturing in many ways. So, I know, you've got to evaluate it yourself. I don't think we can really tell you which technology, like with those. I'd say kind of you have to evaluate them yourself there. Like, we think KMP is very promising as well. Like, that's why we're very interested in it, and we've done a number of experiments. Like, you might have seen some of our Android X libraries have started releasing KMP artifacts and so on. But, you need to evaluate it based on like your timeline and your runway and your team size and your expertise and so on. So I don't think we can really give you a definitive answer there. Like, I think our goal is to help people make amazing applications, amazing Android applications. So we're going to be focused on that. And if like a technology will help you do that, then we'll look at it.
Thank you.
At the front.
So the Relay plugin for Figma is in alpha right now, but is there any community or is there any specific feedback place where we can get feedback or resolve the issue? Because it's too early for anyone to use as a designer or even as a developer. So the questions about where to report the bugs for the Relay, etc.
I'm gonna say probably our issue tracker. I think it has a kind of a category or a component for Relay, and that would be kind of your entry point. So that's where you can give feedback, that's where you can raise feature requests, and those can be upvoted by the community to kind of be addressed by our teams.
Will there be any stable release by the end of the year?
I cannot make any forward-looking statements on that.
How many folks here know what Relay is? Like, show of hands, do you know what Relay is?
Oh, that's a lot of questions.
Sorry?
That was a lot of questions. Everyone's raising their hand.
No. For those who don't, it's a plugin for Figma, which lets you export Figma components into Jetpack Compose code. Has some limitations. It's in beta right now, I believe. But if that's of interest to you, like, check out Relay. An actual question, or are you still just really keen on Relay?
So my question is about XML layouts. So much talks are going about Jetpack Compose. So what's the future for XML layouts?
Well, I think we've been pretty clear. Hopefully, we've been pretty clear that the future is Jetpack Compose. Like, we want to get there. We want the future to have one single toolkit, so it's clear for you what to use and for us what to invest in and keep on investing in. Having two toolkits is quite a burden for everyone. So that is definitely the future. Jetpack Compose is the future. XML or activities and things are still going to exist, or views will still exist, probably as like a communication layer or an implementation detail of almost how you get your Compose UI in there. But yeah, like, I don't know if I could be any clearer. Compose is the future. But we know that it's going to take a while to get there. Like, you all have existing code bases that you don't have the luxury of just abandoning or like starting from scratch. We understand that. So there's going to be obviously a period where both things coexist, and we try and acknowledge that and try and make it as easy as possible with our interop tooling and so on to try and make it easy for you to interoperate between them or migrate from one to the other if appropriate, whatever works for your business. Yeah, but the future is Compose. Is that clear? What's the future?
I think there's one thing to add there. It's like XML layouts would be replaced, right, by Jetpack Compose, but then there is still other XML files, and there's no active plan to change that. So if you still have a strings.xml right now, you still have a, what's the other one, values XML. There's like a bunch of those kind of manifests. And so there will still be XML in your code base for now, but the layouts themselves would be replaced by composables.
Hi, thanks for the panel. Latest version of Camera X 1.3 is the stable one. Starting from 1.3 beta 2 requires target SDK 34 and blocks us and probably others from upgrading. Is there any specific reason that you decided to upgrade the target SDK, even before Play Store?
So it's just compile SDK, not target SDK. So you should be able to safely upgrade. And also SDK 34, it was stable when we upgraded it, but also Android OS API level 34 is now out stable as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes and no. It still blocks us from upgrading.
Can you use the mic? Thanks.
It still blocks us from upgrading because we're an SDK, and if we do that, all of our customers need to do it as well. And that's not something that they want to do, so it kind of blocks us as well. But the changes in that version is actually quite critical. It fixes a lot of bugs and corner cases.
If you have any feedback around the camera SDK, you can tell it to me after, and I can make sure that it goes to the right team.
Thank you.
As a general point, though, like we hear you that there's a lot of versions that you have to stay on top of, and the interaction of them can be complex and surprising. Something we're looking at, like generally, we had a policy in Android X to try and upgrade the compile SDK as soon as the SDK goes stable. Like, we're trying to stay up to date. It's easier for us to kind of like keep on marching forward and keep on shipping you the benefits of newer compile SDKs and all the goodness that that brings. We hear you that it can be painful, so we're looking at, like, do we relax that policy? Do we lag it slightly or something? But, we want your feedback here. Like, it's a balance between giving you the newest stuff and keeping on the, things up to date and advancing all the time and not passing that pain on to you. So we want more feedback on this. Like, is it like really, like, what would you rather see us do more, or stay up to date, or give you more time to upgrade? And yeah, so we're looking at this, and as well as we're trying to attack it with some tooling as well. So compile SDK is one thing, but like we know target SDK updates can be painful, so we're investing in things like the SDK upgrade assistant tooling in Android Studio, which helps you there, and we also try to gate a lot more behavior changes behind target SDK things, so you opt into them rather than being surprised by them at runtime. Questions? Maybe here?
Hi. Question regarding the Compose graphics layer. Any plans on use on dynamic blur? It's a blur that would allow to blur the content behind, not rather the content on top.
Who knows?
Well, the part that I can say is that from what I know, and I don't know the full details here, but from what I know, blurring is quite hard, especially when you deal with like lower end devices, when you deal with like older SDKs as well. So that's why it is very difficult to implement.
I thought we had it. So we added something in Android 13, right? Is that the dynamic blur you're talking about, the one we added?
So the one that's added, it blurs the composable, let's say, that's on top. But if I want to blur the content, the composable is behind the other composable that is covered by it, then there is no solution yet, I think. Unless you use some Skia shaders or something like that.
It is quite a common situation because on iOS, it makes it so easy to do this. And so a lot of designers will go to the Android team and say, hey, we have this amazing design. Can you please implement it? And Android kind of works with different paradigms, right? So my suggestion would be to kind of push back a little bit and say, like, this is not the design language of this platform. Try to adapt to the design. Like, we have the same thing with shadows, right? Like, it's one of our main requested features in Compose, is make it possible to like easily do a box shadow. However, shadows has the same problem. Like, it has that same kind of like backward facing. It's really hard to make it work, make it performant everywhere. And when people start using it everywhere, you know, it will have an impact on the app. So the newest versions of Android might be great, but you might not want to do that everywhere. But then, even with shadows, like, we have a lighting system, and kind of if you use that, then you're actually using, you know, you're working with the platform instead of against the platform.
Okay, thank you.
Which, by the way, doesn't mean we're not looking into it, right? Like, we are investigating these things as well.
That's good to know, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for the question. Over here.
Hi. I have a question. With the rapid changes in the Jetpack Compose APIs, are there plans to supply like the recent changes to the Android Studio bot via like fine-tuning of large language models? I utilize generative AI to generate a lot of Jetpack Compose code, and so far it's going well, but sometimes the APIs are a bit outdated, so I end up having to like go to the docs and like copy the documentation into my context window to get up-to-date results. So I just wanted to know, like, what's that collaborative experience like within Google with the Jetpack Compose team and Android Studio bot and the training set that is being utilized for the model?
Does anyone want to go? I can take a stab. So firstly, StudioBot is still very early experimental. Just want to caveat with that. We know that the quality of the response isn't quite where we want it to be, and we're investing a lot into trying to improve that. The first versions of StudioBot that launched weren't actually specialized trained on Android. Like, Google has a development specialized LLM. I forget what we call it externally, but it was just using that. And since then, we've advanced it to actually train it on a lot more Android-specific training materials. So, for example, all of developer.android.com, we feed that in as a training source into StudioBot in order to teach it stuff. So, you know, as we update developer.android.com with new guidance, new API references, and so on, that is now getting fed back into the LLM to train it. We're also feeding in more training signals like RLHF, I think it's called, I can't remember the exact name, where, you know, if you're saying something was a good response or a bad response, we're using human kind of feedback to help train some more of the data, which helps a lot with this machine learning stuff. As well as we're looking at all the questions coming in. We're looking at like anonymized questions that are coming in and like working out other areas that people are asking a lot of questions on. Compose and Kotlin actually are two of the highest areas. We're getting a lot of questions being sent to StudioBot on. So we're like looking at what training data we can use here to make sure we have great answers there. So yes, we recognize it's a problem, especially with fast-moving things, that fast-moving data sources, that we need to keep retraining the model, the underlying model, to make sure it's accounting for them. And we're trying to set up pipelines. Like, so I'm most excited about like trying to make sure that the developer.android.com data is weighted very highly as a trusted, like, strong signal into the LLM, because that's a good, you know, make sure we improve developer.android.com, improve StudioBot is a good, like, virtuous loop, I think. So a number of efforts ongoing here. Thanks for the question. Like, glad you're trying it out, and let us know what you think about it. Rate the answers if it's good or bad, because that data is looked at.
Cheers. Thanks for the answer. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for the panel. I have one question regarding the IDX project. I know that like they're starting support like mobile through Flutter, but I was wondering, was Compose and Android considered for that project as well? Because like, especially for education on like people with low-end computers and stuff, I think it would be a huge revolution to have like Compose and Android and Kotlin as well on that project. Was something that like that considered?
I can have a go. Everyone know what IDX is? It's a web-based IDE that we've launched kind of in alpha, beta. I think it's very early days as well. It is focused on Flutter right now because it's not targeted towards mobile dev. It doesn't have any emulator or mobile debugging or device connectivity story right now. So I think we're talking to the team about what Android support might look like further on the roadmap, but it's not their initial target right now. They're looking at Flutter because they can target lots of platforms like the web and so on. So we're definitely talking to them, but not yet, not right now. Lots to work out, really.
Yeah, thank you.
There's one at the back. Yeah.
Hi, I have a question about Material 2 and Material 3 libraries. So at the moment we're using Material 2, and our app isn't really dynamic, doesn't really change too much with the team. So I wonder if there's like any benefits to go to Material 3, and if you can use Material 3 the same as Material 2.
So can you repeat the last part of the question?
So if you can use Material 3 library the same way as we currently have Material 2.
I think in general, Material 3 more or less, is the same conceptually as Material 2, right? We changed some of the APIs, some of the concepts, I guess. So that would be a little bit from migration needed from Material 2 to Material 3. I think there is also a migration guide in developers.com, but in general, there is way more emphasis currently on Material 3. So Material 2 is considered mostly to be on the support mode. So Material team fixes bugs, accessibility issues, and improvements, but Material 3 is the way forward, and Material 3 will be more actively developed and evolved in the future as well. So yeah, but yeah, possible to migrate, just a little bit of pain here and there, new concepts, but yes, should be doable.
Thank you.
I could add to that. I think the biggest difference for me is the color system. There's lots of more semantic color roles. I think Material 2 is a little maybe simpler, but maybe not as customizable, and 3 kind of really builds on that. So I would check out, if you haven't yet, the theme builder is some tooling that we expose that will help you to build your Material-free color theme. And like you say, yeah, definitely there's migration guidance as well if you Google for it. So I think that's the biggest difference, is working out what your color theming looks like in a Material-free world is probably the biggest, I think, difference between the two. But then, yeah, a lot of the components have kind of exact analogies, or there's a lot more components in Material-free, and it's definitely where we're investing. So I'd say it's definitely worth checking out moving.
Yeah, just to add to that, I would say if you have a designer or a team of designers in your company, then work with them, because they will probably have to look at kind of how Material 3 matches your brand. What you can do as well is, I just want to plug our Hero Sample app now in Android as a great example of, if you want to bring that theming to the next level, what would that look like in a real code base?
Yeah, good point. Questions.
Hi there. Yeah, this question is more about the capabilities. With Compose, how much limitations on hardware in terms of devices now? That I noticed that every time that we update Compose, we had to update also the libraries, and therefore it's becoming a bit more power hungry. So I wonder how much in terms of backward compatibility are you trying to avoid that your new architecture is not going to influence on we having to get the latest phone, in simple words, because that is probably the hardware limitations. So I wonder what is the strategy on Compose and in terms of capability, basically?
Yeah, so we are really focused on low-end devices. All the performance work we're doing, we test on low-end devices. That's the device we want to make work, because if we make low-end devices work, high-end devices go faster as well. And the performance work, we're focused on frame time and composition time, but that has a direct correlation to power consumption as well. So yeah, we definitely care about low-end devices.
To add to that as well, you mentioned the migration to the newer Compose libraries. In the upcoming release and the release before, we've been very focusing on the performance in general. Again, the performance brings, the battery life and other things. So if anything, I would expect that migration to the newer Compose library, newer Compose versions will bring better performance in a way. So I would encourage like library developers and users to upgrade to the newer stable versions, because that should be way better.
Hi there. My question is on best practices regarding previews, and the amount of them, because I usually end up writing previews for small components, but for larger screens I tend to just not write previews.
When related to testing, you can answer if you want.
I mean, it is not related to testing, but
it will be.
But it won't stop you from.
But a preview is a manual test. So you will probably be able to rethink your preview strategy when the screenshot testing feature lands in Studio. You might want to, instead of having hundreds of previews, to move some of even all of them to automated testing. So we will have a whole source set for these previews so that you can organize them in probably in a better way. And we do recommend also taking screenshots of big layouts, as you mentioned. So yeah, hopefully that will bring some order to your code base. But on specific like current things that you can do to organize your previews, do we have any guidance on that?
I don't think we have explicit guidance, but again, like the Now in Android sample is quite an interesting place to look, because I know that we've spent quite some time to like create previews there and create some sort of kind of plan of how we wanted to do that. My big question, the other way around, but we can talk about this later, is like, why would you not make a preview? Because in the end, you can easily hide and show them. And they're also quite an interesting way to show like that your component or your screen or whatever you're making in Compose at that point is stateless, and you can easily use a preview to render it, right? So I would wonder why not. I know we had issues before with like if there's a lot of previews, then the preview system will actually render all of them, so it might become slow, right? If you have one file that has 20 big screens to render, then it takes 10 or 20 seconds to load it. But that's something that the tooling is actually being iterated on to kind of not always render everything, but kind of have categories or...
Yeah, we've launched that. That's progressive rendering, right?
Exactly.
The other thing I'd add is like one of my favorite things about previews is how easy it makes to look at permutations of the component. So if you want to look at multiple themes or like font sizes or multiple devices, like so I think for the screen, like, both for the component level, you can understand obviously how those permutations help, but for the screen level, I think like if you add like one of the devices previews, I forget the exact syntax, it will give you, what this looks like on a large device, on a small device, in landscape, in portrait, and I think that can be super helpful. So that might be a compelling case for using them at the kind of the screen level rather than component level, so you can make sure you're not breaking these things, and I'm sure you'll then add a screenshot test to make sure you're not breaking those layouts inadvertently.
Yeah, can you expand on specific problems that you have managing the previews?
We started very early with Compose, and I guess the tooling support just wasn't at a level which is now, so I guess I will just reevaluate.
Cool. I can't remember the exact name, but the new UI linter as well now works through previews too, so it'll give you warnings if like on a landscape device this label can't be read because maybe the color's blended with the wrong background or something like that. So lots of tooling going into previews. So
cool, thanks.
And as last thing to say about this is, if you're using stable Android Studio, it makes a lot of sense. But this is such an area of active development that if you want to know kind of what is coming, definitely download like a canary version or a beta version of Android Studio, because you will see, especially in this area, you will see quite some new tooling being tested.
What is the future of look-ahead layout, and will we see shared element transitions soon?
We know that this is one of the like highly requested features, and we are actively working on this. it's a really hard problem. So, you can see most of these developments out in the open, right? Like it's all being developed open source, so you can see the CLs, the pull requests, sorry. And you can see everything, all that work that is going into that. But yeah, I've been looking at some of the documentations and the internal work that's being done, and it is very complicated work. So yes, we're working on it. I hope to have more to share soon. But you can kind of already play around. There's some demos here and there that you can play around with as well, also in the open source library. I can't promise anything at this point, but
you can't look ahead and tell us? Hey.
To add to that about the look-ahead layout, I think in general, what is very important is to make things right in Compose. So that's why I think overall the problem space is complicated, because we don't want to introduce a lot of performance overheads, like we don't want to double measure or do other things that will compromise the performance. So in general, crafting the core APIs like look-ahead layout and then building up on that is things we want to do the right way, and also gathering the requirements from material team to make sure that material transitions are possible. So there are a lot of things in general being in parallel developed and tried. But what I also want to encourage is that don't wait for us to build like a high-level framework for transitions as well. Look-ahead layout is already available. You can use it, try it out. You can build your own cross-screen animations already. It just requires a little bit work and wiring things up.
And there are already libraries on top of it, right? Is it Orbital, I think, Skydoves? That, we're talking to them as well about it. But to signal boosting, Matvei said, we're trying to get it right. I want shared element transitions very desperately, but we want to do it right. We want to put the right plumbing in there that is going to, the APIs will stand the test of time, so we're not rushing this. Instead, get it right.
I have a question on device compatibility. Do you think it's necessary to test on devices from multiple manufacturers, and how to achieve the sufficient coverage? And are there any official statistics on most popular devices in certain markets?
What was the last part? Any statistics on?
If there are any official statistics on most popular devices in certain markets, like in Europe or Asia?
I'm not entirely sure on the last part. I can definitely search it up. I know that Samsung is the most popular overall in the world. With regards to device manufacturer inconsistencies, I do talk about this. I have a talk at the end of this day around background work, which is likely what you're referring to when it comes to device inconsistencies. This is something that we understand, happens, and a lot of the times we don't have as much visibility into exactly what changes in other device manufacturers than internally, our AOSP does. But we do have tests to make sure that they are following certain guidelines. So we have these compatibility tests that run on various manufacturers. The other thing that we are doing is that we're having more communications with all of these device manufacturers now. And so something that has recently happened with regards to Samsung is that they have actually posted in their blog post that they're guaranteeing that foregone services will not change in terms of their intended behavior on Android 14 and up. And this is part of a long negotiation process that we've been doing because we realize that it is very frustrating, and we would love to get to the point where developers can stop having to test on various manufacturers. I know the reality might not be the case right now. And if you do actually have any specific scenarios that are different across device manufacturers, I would love to know. All of that data is very valuable for us.
Yeah, also I think you should probably check your own stats on devices because it really doesn't matter what we see. What is important to you is your users. So I would use that. That said, I would try to limit as much as possible the tests that you do on, instrumented tests in general, but also if you if you need to run the same test on 10 or 15
Are you going to draw a pyramid for us, Jose?
What's that?
You're going to draw a pyramid for us? Like
the Android pyramid, exactly. Definitely, it's a good thing to have if you want to have like regression tests for very specific bugs that have made your life miserable in the past. Like add a test for a specific device. That is, I think, a good idea. But the vast majority of tests should probably run on either emulators or JVM if you're lucky. So yeah, I would say that it's gotten better in some ways and probably worse in others. The things that you have to test on devices to like get the real experience of the users, and now you can get very far with something like JVM tests, even for UIs in Row Electric, for instance.
I was going to add, we don't publish stats on popular devices, but others do. But also, we have the Firebase Test Lab as well, which I know they try and stock with popular devices that a lot of people are seeing in the field. So you might want to look at FTL, Firebase Test Lab, and look at the devices they offer as well. As if you call our recent releases, Android Studio now have a new feature called Firebase Device Direct Access? No, Device Streaming. That's the external name. Device Streaming.
That only has,
which lets you,
sorry, that only has Pixel devices, I think.
Which is getting, which launched the early access beta with just Pixel devices, but we're expanding that. You might have seen we did a demo last week where we were showing we now trying to open it up to access to the entire FTL Firebase Test Lab device catalog. So that's more of a debug feature, like, oh, I have this issue on like one device, I want to test it out and like repro that issue and fix that issue. Like, I don't have a physical access to the device, but I can just stream it straight from there. Whereas FTL is more of the, I want to have my continuous integration, like testing across an array of devices and testing if there's any weirdo issues.
All right, thanks.
Can I add one more thing here? For some situations where we know that there is like differences between manufacturers, a good example I think is camera. We know that the cameras work differently on certain manufacturers. They have strange kind of artifacts on some specific devices, quirks.
Personality.
Yeah, right word. What we do is we actually created a Camera X library kind of as an abstraction layer on top. And that Camera X library guarantees you that if you use those APIs, those are tested across, like there's a test lab, I've seen that this is hundreds of like devices testing all of these different use cases to make sure that when you use the API, you're guaranteed to actually have a solid experience.
And Media-free Exoplayer does the same thing, right? It has some device quirks in there, so yeah, we account for those for you.
Yeah, in general, we're trying to have like more opinionated Jetpack libraries, so that they take these things into account. I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the future as well.
Thanks.
How are we doing on time? Greg's going to get his crook out. We're good? 5 minutes? 5 minutes. Okay.
Are you working on officially supporting HTML in the text composable instead of having to use Android View?
It's on the roadmap.
Yeah.
Yes?
I'll take this moment to advertise the talk that is happening today as well, I think, about text fields, and there will be text experts and catch us all during the office hours as well and ask the questions, not about the future, but about what do you want and the feature requests and how to support certain things, especially with text.
Thank you.
Where are we going next?
So, hello. My question is related to the compose code modularity, or let's call it granularity. So, from your point of view, how can developers best structure their compose code to achieve this modularity, reusability, and as well easy to read code, basically? Thank you.
Do you want to plug API guidelines?
Exactly. I think, in general, I would say that there are some, so first of all, there are some guidelines we published recently, some guidelines we published a few years ago outlining overall compose, I guess, idiomacy behind compose code, and like how to use the basic tools you provide, modifiers, the naming and stuff. And then recently, I'm personally attached to that as well. We published Compose component API guidelines. The intention was exactly that, like make sure that components you build are reusable and feel like they've built by same person, same team, like the consistency behind the patterns you use. I think that's my biggest recommendation, just because obviously we have the saying in Compose that everyone is a library developer because you all build components, right? And then you all expect to reuse the components. So it's very important to come up with your own style, I think, or use our own recommended style of APIs, and then follow that. I think that would be a good starting point. But in general, yeah, for the granularity, I think every project, every team can decide on themselves, like how big their composables can be. We obviously, we want to make sure that any kind of granularity of the code or components you want, like if you want small components that you reuse highly and just combine to the bigger layouts, that's fine. If you want have a little bit larger components, that also should be doable. So I don't think we have a strong opinion about that. Just decide what works best for you.
Thank you.
Maybe one or two more. Yeah.
Thank you. My question is, the UI layer in AOSP is based on Java and XML layouts, and the Kotlin support is quite outdated. Are there any plans to bring Jetpack Compose and up-to-date Kotlin to AOSP development? Thank you.
Yeah, we're already working on it.
Yeah. And do you have a timeline for the major release?
Soon?
Morning. I have a question about locals. So we have this scenario where we have the same code base to build different APK to target different markets. And we want to make sure that each app that is built is only displayed in the language for that market. So we want to enforce the local for each of those apps. So at the moment we are using the app compat delegates set application locals, which works very well on Android 13. But on previous version, we have this problem where the local is only applied to the activity context and not the application context. I know this issue has been raised to Google for more than a year now, but it didn't seem to have been properly fixed. So my question is, has it planned to be fixed, or is there an alternative ways to do that?
I don't think any of us are aware, but if you come over to meet one of us after this, then we can at least take a look at that issue and revert you to the right person.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe one more.
Obviously, I can. So hi, my company is working with Android Automotive OS. My question is if this Jetpack Compose stack will in the future also be applied there. So regarding all your apps that you provide out of the box, like media and this kind of stuff, do you intend to rewrite them at some point with Compose and getting rid of CarUI and such stuff? I mean, you said Compose will be the future.
So I'm not clear on the question. You're asking, will we rewrite Google's apps in Compose? Is that the question?
For example, yes.
Automotive.
Automotive. Android Automotive OS.
You can use Compose in automotive in that. Is that your question?
No, that's clear. I mean, we do that already. The question is more regarding the apps you provide out of the box that come along with Android Automotive OS. You provide a bunch of apps there, which currently rely on CarUI, which has this other UI toolkit.
I don't know specifically about automotive, but I can speak generally about our approach, like you all. Google teams are looking at evaluating and moving to Jetpack Compose. We've talked quite a lot publicly about how the Play Store have adopted Compose, and they were a great partner in giving a ton of feedback to the team and making the APIs good. Other teams are already looking at, I think we've talked publicly about how the Drive team and the Messages team and so on, just like you all, Google teams are wanting to move to Jetpack Compose. I don't know the specifics about Auto, but I'd be surprised if they weren't looking at it in some way or other.
Okay.
It's the future. Done? One more, Greg says.
Hey, I have a question about the Studio network debugging. It's a great tool, but it currently only supports, I think, OK HTTP engine, which means we have an issue and can't really use it with CI engine, which is kind of default in Ktor. So if there's any update on whether it's planned to expand support onto other engines, that would be great to know. Thanks.
Is that the network inspector only supports OK HTTP, other engine support? Don't know. Maybe that's a good one to come to the office hours. I think there's some tooling office hours slots available. That might be the right place to get an answer to that question. Sorry. Unless anyone knows. I think we know. Cool. Okay, with that, thank you very much for the questions. Like, we really want to make Android better for you. So, like, come talk to us, tell us what we can do. And thanks so much to the panel for the discussion.